G'day everyone, Chris from the Headache and Pain Management Centre here, and today we're talking about some troubleshooting. If you've actually had your neck checked previously by a physio or chiro and it hasn't got the result that you've needed for your headaches and migraines, so we're just talking a couple of things that might troubleshoot as to why it hasn't quite worked out, even if it looks like or feels like it is coming from your neck. If you are joining us, type in below and say hello, it's good to be here. So yes, when we're talking about headaches and migraines, you can see that I'm in the office here. It's got all the things that we treat behind there. When we're treating headache and migraine, quite often we see some patients that come through that have been to a lot of places previously and they haven't quite got the relief that they have needed. Now, sometimes what I will say right from the outset is that it is not their neck that is the problem. So at times there are some other things that are going on where the neck isn't the biggest issue. So I will say that from the outset that everyone that has headache and migraine should have their neck assessed, but it doesn't mean that their neck will be the cause, but it always does need to be assessed and checked. But sometimes what we do see is that people have had their neck treated or their neck assessed before and it's made things worse, or it hasn't made things better. It hasn't, like, it's just stagnated, and yet it is actually their neck that's the issue. So a couple of things here that can actually assist. The first thing is that when you have headaches and migraines for a long period of time and the treatment is too rough, okay, so it hurts too much. So if you're poking too hard or there's aggressive cracking or things of that nature, it means that it can be just a little bit too sensitive, your neck that is, or your nervous system is a bit too sensitive for the force of the treatment that you have got. So if you have had a forceful treatment for your neck, like a manipulation, like a clunk or a crack or something that a chiropractor or a physio has done, or it's been pushing too hard in through the neck at the top, whether by bouncing or by sustaining things, it can flare things up if it's not done tactfully, if it's not done with enough, if you like, nous. It can be the neck that's the cause of this, but if you go too hard too quick, quite often it can have worse results, and it can trick you into thinking that it's not your neck that's the problem, when as a matter of fact it is, just that it's gone a bit too hard too soon. The second thing that can happen is that you can have an issue with your neck. It sort of flows on from step one, I guess, but what can happen is that because the brain itself is actually stopping your neck from moving. So if you've had a whiplash, you've had a trauma, you've fallen onto your head, or you've just had a lot of pain around your neck, bottom of the skull for quite some time, it can be very, very sensitized. So at times when you do anything with your neck, like moving around or putting any pressure, even if it's gentle through the neck, it causes some things to happen. It causes a worsening of the symptoms. And if that's the case, what needs to happen is there needs to be some retraining of your nervous system first in order to actually get the job done. You need to wind your system down so it's less sensitive first before you treat the neck with your thumbs. So if that's the case, there can be a few things that can happen there. So there is one strategy called graded motor imagery, which is something that can help a lot. That can involve imagining movements or actually just getting the brain tricked into doing some more movements. So using mirrors and things of that nature to start with. Or it can be other things like a really huge amount of stress. It can be some psychological issues there, which are sensitizing your systems that have gone undealt with. That's relatively uncommon, but we do see it. And also if there are other things that are sensitizing your system, like some sort of autonomic disorder, dizziness, nausea, or something else that's sensitizing your system. So obviously that needs to be dealt with first before you get your neck looked at. The third thing, this is important as well, is that if there's something else that's going on, like benign cranial hypertension, for example, or if there's a Chiari malformation which is, symptomatic, perhaps if there is something positive on the scans like, tumours or nasties like that, quite often you can get headaches that are coming from your neck, but you also have symptoms that are coming from what we call red flags. So there's something else that is there as well. So quite often you can have a headache that's coming, or a migraine condition coming from your neck, stemming from the neck being an issue, but you've also got a secondary thing that's going on, like one of those nasties that are in there. So it's really important, if you've got one of those nasties, to make sure that you're talking to your doctor, talking to your neurologist, talking to your specialist, to make sure that we know which is which, because what can happen is that obviously what you need to make sure of is, if you've got those things going on, that they are being treated by a medical professional, someone someone with a medical degree who is able to best advise you about what's going on. But what is interesting about these sorts of things is that you can have headaches that are coming from your neck, as well as some symptoms that are coming from those secondary causes as well. So you've got to be sure there that you know what symptoms are causing, what causes are what symptoms, and it's really important to get that checked out. So if you have had your neck assessed before and it's got worse, and you haven't had a scan or you haven't had things sorted out and it's a little bit iffy, your doctors are a little bit sketchy about what's going on, then perhaps a scan is warranted in that situation, particularly if there's family histories of stroke and things like that. So the key thing with any headache and migraine condition is to make sure that you are safe, because with headache and migraine conditions, though most of the time they are benign, they are just pain conditions with no nasties, it's really important not to miss those. You need to be absolutely certain that things are all going okay. So they're the three things. So firstly, you can be pushing too hard, too quick, too soon, doing too much cracking. Second thing is that it's the right thing, but your brain is too sensitized to do any manual therapy, no matter how softly you're pushing. Or the third thing, there is something sinister in there. And if you are watching this video, you probably have been to your doctors and your specialists before, but if you haven't, please be sure that if there is anything sinister there, or you are concerned about that before seeking treatment for your neck. It's very, very important. We've seen people from all of those different categories in the past, and it's very important to recognize those things when you are getting your neck assessed and when it is getting treated. Hope that's been very helpful. If you are wondering any more questions about that, please type in below into the comments about any questions you might have about neck treatment for headaches and migraines. And I'll be back again later on this week for another Facebook Live video. Cheers and bye for now.